Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Women Inspire. Good morning. It's such a joy to be here this morning, and I'm so honored and privileged also to be standing here before you today. What a beautiful morning and what a beautiful set of people. I'm grateful and honored to welcome all of you. I know that we've had an early morning, everyone coming in from different parts of town and making sure they get here on time. Please permit me again to introduce the Honorable Charmaine A. Williams, the Associate Minister of Women, Social and Economic Opportunity with the Government of Ontario. In June 2022, she made history as the first Black PC Cabinet Minister, with a focus on increasing women's workforce participation, particularly in the underrepresented sectors like entrepreneurship, skilled trades, and STEM. Minister Williams strives to enhance economic security and independence for women. Prior to her political career, Charmaine served as Brampton City Councillor for Wards 7 and 8 and had a distinguished 19-year career as a certified multisystemic therapist and behavioral consultant, advocating for others through her professional and personal experiences. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives us so much joy to bring Charmaine into her space today, and I want to encourage all of you to connect with her as much as possible. A round of applause for Charmaine. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I know, morning. But after yesterday, 17 degrees, you know, we should be invigorated. Well, it's not March 8th yet, but I still want to wish everyone a very happy International Women's Day. And I'd like to thank Women Inspire for bringing us here so that we can talk about the important ways that we can help support each other. So your theme today is Beyond Inclusion, Empowering Women Digitally. And it's a powerful call to action for International Women's Day. And I'll talk shortly about how our government and groups like Women Inspire are working together to support women's inclusion and empowerment. But first, I do want to reflect for a moment on International Women's Day. So you can probably imagine that I have a pretty full schedule this time of the year, and last month, because Black History Month. But I'm 100% delighted for that and by that. You know, International Women's Day is an important event layered with history, with opportunity, dialogue, and hope, and I cherish every single moment of it. My passion as minister responsible for women's social and economic opportunities, a ministry that used to be called Women's Issues. Yes, my issues are my husband's issues. Right? So our ministry is to empower and help women thrive at home, in their community, and in their workplace. And every day I do have the honor of championing that for women. And I get to work with community organizations like Women Inspire to help increase women's social and economic opportunities. So on International Women's Day, it's really clear that we do have many building blocks to celebrate, but there's also barriers to overcome. However, our momentum is unstoppable, and I hear. In addition to steering more women into skilled trades and STEM sectors, we're also helping more women create jobs, and that's a big thing for me. I want to see more women at the leadership table because we do know that when you have women at leadership tables, the rest of the company has more diversity, right? And so if we can help more women become CEOs and get that funding to be able to launch their business, we're going to see more diverse within our corporate sectors. We also know that 53% less funding is received by women in capital grants. We have to change that, and also make sure that we're seeing more women at the decision-making boards, you know, where they decide who's going to get the funding and who's not. We have to see more diversity, and so I'm really committed to seeing that change. And I should also make sure that I tell you all that I love to shake things up. If anybody who knows me, ask the questions and get to those tables where some of these decisions are being made and make sure that we're sponsoring the support of women who we know are going to be able to keep making noise at tables and showing how valuable and strong we are when we're there. So I just want to say that I believe in building partnerships, and I believe in organizations such as Women Inspire who are out there, who are encouraging all of us to see the best of ourselves, to see us as full contributing partners, and to encourage collaboration, not competition, but collaboration. Because when women are working together, great things happen. Ideas and jobs get done, right? We do. Actually, there's studies that show, especially when you have women on job sites in the trades, jobs get done faster. Less money is spent on retooling. It's a good thing to have women there. So together we can improve opportunities for women and encourage and see women pursue their dreams and help build a stronger Ontario. And I always leave every speech with this one line, because when women succeed, Ontario succeeds. Thank you so much.
Okay, so are we ready to be inspired today? Yes. That didn't sound, I didn't feel that. I didn't feel like you were ready to be inspired. Let's try that again. Are you ready to be inspired today? Yes. So today on International Women's Day, we're not just talking about inclusion. We're soaring beyond it. This first panel discussion is a chance to witness the power of women entrepreneurship in action. We'll hear real-life stories, groundbreaking ideas, and the journeys that shaped them. The theme is Beyond Inclusion, Empowering Women Digitally. This takes stage, and the person who's going to be moderating, we're going to be going on this captivating journey with her, is Professor Melissa Jimeno, our esteemed moderator who will guide us through the dynamic conversation. Now let's give a warm welcome to our incredible panelists, a force of nature known for driving economic development, Claire Barnett, Director of Economic Development, City of Brampton, Juliet Kigo Ume Oyindo, Founder of Whole Woman Network and Board of Director, Harrow Center for Women Enterprise, and Asil Karaman, Founder, Operations Manuv, and co-founder of Smart Gen Co. Give a warm hand of applause for our wonderful panelists and moderators. And remember, we are here to be inspired. So let's make it louder. Let's make it more encouraging. Come on. So,
I'll let you clap for Ashley this last time, but then no more clapping to the end. How about that? Though it is much appreciated. So I wonder if perhaps, Juliet, we could go back to you and sort of talk about, and you touched on with regard to your business, sort of how COVID-19 really helped spur a lot of the initiatives that you undertook. And I wonder, I think we know broadly at this point that women were disproportionately impacted from a working perspective with regard to the pandemic, and we're continuing to sort of navigate and try to close those disparities that were lengthened or increased during that period. So I'm wondering what your advice might be for startup companies that are trying to overcome challenges such as the pandemic. Hopefully not quite as dramatic as that, but as they're going through their sort of growth period.
Thank you for that question. Great question. Because for me, I really do think that the pandemic is not over. It's not over because the effects are still with us, and especially with women. When you look at whether it's the care industry, issues around childcare, elder care, there are just so many things that are still happening that are the effects of that. So for any business or prospective business owner that's in the room or that's listening, I think what I'll share is kind of like our own journey, because I know everyone is going to be unique, but there are some commonalities. Number one was that when this happened, the pandemic, it allowed us to pause and really, look at what we were doing as an entity So that idea of where do you start from when you're starting a business? For us, we started thinking long term. We started thinking in terms of our purpose, our bigger vision, right? What is this thing we do? So the mission statement wasn't just a statement. It was now something we lived. What are the values that will anchor this business? So proper preparation is the first thing that I'm going to say. You really have to do your due diligence. We spent years on our feasibility study, and I really want to thank a lot of players in the room here, you know, the whole ecosystem, whether it's the Women Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, for all the research, right, that was put out, because those were the things we were now looking at. So that was one. Number two, plugging into an ecosystem. The ecosystem is really growing for women entrepreneurs, and they're very well represented in the room today here. So for us, like with Casa Foundation, for instance, we did all the programs. Myself, members of staff, EP Point, CEO Series, Black Advisory, we took everything that was available, right? The tutor is smiling. Paro is right here in the room, right? Rosalind Locke here. We plugged into that too, and I happen to be on the board of Paro. So the next thing is serving. Look for opportunities to serve. As you're building your business, serve in the community, because that's when you begin to understand the needs of the community and respond to them, because business is really solving problems, right? That's now valuable in the marketplace. So when you begin to think of it that way, it becomes natural to say, where are the organizations doing this work? How can we even support them, whether on their board, whether helping them with fundraising, because that's how you do the next thing, partnership. You begin to build partnerships from relationships, and it's something we do so well as women, right? That's how we're almost, I want to say, wired, right? So why don't we take this and use it well? And I mean, my time is up, but we'll probably have conversations later in the room, because there's tons of stuff to share. Thank you.
Yeah, I very much like the idea. Oh, no. I appreciate the excitement, but no. What I was going to say was that I appreciated the fact that you noted that you took time to pause, because I think so often people get sort of in the weeds trying to tamp down fires and put out fires day by day, that they forget to reflect and go back to ultimately what was your vision and purpose, which is what you did. And then pivoting and really trying to tap into that ecosystem that you had sort of cultivated. So Asli, I wonder if I could, again, pivot to you perhaps, or throw to you kind of the same question in terms of what your advice might be for startup groups, and again, given your international studentness and the international students that I dragged here this morning, if you could potentially talk particularly about those challenges and the challenges that you maybe had as a female entrepreneur during that period as well.
So I'm going to admit, the last 2 years were tough for all of us. First the pandemic, then inflation, then this psychological recession, not technical, but psychological recession. So what kept me going, to be honest, was sheer determination, more than anything. And I noticed during my journey, whatever the decision is, when we are tiptoeing around it, the brain senses it, and it says like, okay, you're not sure about entrepreneurship? Okay, you're not sure about this idea? I'm not going to get you find the answers then. I'm not going to help you. You just tiptoe, keep tiptoeing. But the moment when we say, I am determined, and even if I fail 100 times, I'm gonna get this through. Then the brain says like, now we are talking. Now I'm going to help you. Now, and then all of a sudden you start seeing answers in your dreams and how to proceed, what's your next step, then the opportunities start coming to your way. So that's what happened to me. So I would say, determination all the way. Technical advice for the entrepreneurs in the audience, product market fit, definitely. If we don't have product market fit in the business, it's very likely that, unfortunately, most of our efforts end up being just beating a dead horse. So that would be my technical advice. And maybe more general advice would be building something that is in the intersection of what we love doing and what we are great at doing. And this is something that I tell my mentees. I'm a mentor at the Forum Canada, which is an amazing organization for women entrepreneurs. So this is one of the first things that I tell all of them. As an entrepreneur, one of your first jobs is to figure out what you're great at doing and what you love. Because if you can build a business that has these two, oh, the sky is the limit for you. So yeah, these would be my advice.
Okay, great. And again, speaking, thank you, about not being sort of, not limiting your passion and continuing to work on something that you can really dive into and focus on. I wonder if, Claire, you could speak from maybe a more institutional kind of perspective, if you will. What may be some of the main gaps that you, in the city of Brampton, or given your provincial experience, perhaps more broadly, have noted with regard to particularly the service offerings to female entrepreneurs?
Sure, so I can just provide a bit of context in terms of Brampton support we provide entrepreneurs. So Brampton has a fairly strong and robust innovation district with 5 incubators supporting entrepreneurs in various segments and sectors. So one that focuses on cybersecurity. They have a program for women and New Canadians as well. Then we go all the way to an international soft landing pad for startups. What we have noticed is that our international soft landing pad are mostly men. And we are on our 3rd cohort, I believe it is. And so I noticed that a couple of weeks ago when I was looking at all of the photos, and wasn't very statistical or mathematical. I just looked and went, huh, we should probably do something about that. Though we have done an extensive amount of research with the province, with the federal government, with many organizations in this room to identify some of the gaps for women from a more strategic perspective. And so some of those would be fairly obvious probably to many of you in the room, but one would be access to capital and funding. We do a lot of boot camps for women to help them do their pitch to the financial services community. We do a lot of work with the banks as well to bring them in to provide advice to female entrepreneurs, mostly to the Entrepreneur Center. What we noticed coming out of COVID is a lot more female entrepreneurs, and so we needed to ramp up our services. We don't have targets or quotas on supporting women to make sure. We just really inherently and organically have been supporting more women. It's just really just happened coming out of the pandemic. The other things that we have noticed is that women don't tend to be successful bidding on procurement, whether it's with the province or the city. So the city now has what I think is called diversified procurement, strategic something. I'll get you the real name if you're interested in it, but it's a strategic procurement process so that if you are interested in bidding, you can become certified or acknowledged as diverse, and then you get to bid on specific projects as well. So that's really important. The other thing is profile. We give female entrepreneurs a lot of profile, and not just in the month of March or February. Year-round, we are continuously promoting it. And I think part of that is because most of the management in the Economic Development Department at the city are women, which is very, very uncommon, and I give credit to my predecessor who hired a lot of very strong women before I got there. Yeah.
We've heard phenomenal stories of women entrepreneurs taking flight, so we're about to delve deeper into digital inclusion. So imagine a world where every woman, regardless of background, has the tools and access to thrive in the digital landscape. That's the future we're trying to build. And today, we'll explore how to get there. Leading the charge is the esteemed Dr. Wendy Souquier, founder and academic director of the Diversity Institute, known for her groundbreaking work in bridging the digital divide. Alongside her are her incredible panelists, Rosalind Lockyer, a champion of women enterprise, Janice Nixon, who empowers women entrepreneurs through innovative programs, and Julie Dimitri, a leader in supporting women's success in the financial world. Get ready to be inspired by their insights and empowered by their vision. This is a conversation that you definitely want to take notes for. So give a round of applause while we welcome our moderator and panelists to the stage.
working on women in technology since the Montreal Massacre, so 1989, 35 years, I guess. And today there are fewer women in computer science and only marginally more in engineering than there were 35 years ago. So the stuff that we're doing to try to encourage women in technology isn't really sticking, and I would argue that part of it is that we, in part because they're male-dominated disciplines, we mystify the technology. And in fact, it's becoming easier and easier and easier. And people are arguing, for instance, one of the impacts of AI is going to turn us all into application developers because it's becoming simpler and simpler and simpler. You don't have to be a computer scientist to use the technology. And I think you've mentioned some of the platforms that are available and the fact that COVID really pushed that through. I don't know to what extent you've thought about the processes for driving change and what it is that you've seen in recent years that's made a difference. And again, I'll start with you, Rosalind, in terms of helping women start up and scale up their businesses, particularly when it comes to embracing technology to expand their market reach.
Well, I think we've talked a little bit about the difference of how women approach technology as to our male counterparts, right? Each of us talked about our social networks. We see social networks as a huge asset, and you know what? We're right. Technology is a tool, right? Technology is a tool. We went through COVID and actually was helpful in introducing new technologies to women who wanted to start, grow, and scale their business. Not wonderful about exporting, although they actually could go on trade missions online, which was an asset. You could get your feet wet, right? Even though you weren't actually stepping on other country soil, you could get your feet wet into exporting, so it became a little bit more comfortable. So I think that was really good. It forced women and government, because if you want to talk to government, they didn't want to use Teams or Zoom or anything like that. They felt the aliens were going to take us over if we did that. And then others were, well, I don't know how to use Zoom and so on. So we got in a position where we had to. We had no choice. So I think that helped us a lot. But it's just a tool. Now we have the tool to use it, but we also have the choice to not use it and to learn how to use it well. So it's not just, it's great that we were empowered and introduced to all the technologies, but they're changing all the time. So you have to constantly be keeping up. So what are we going to do? I think we need government to make policies to recognize that having internet access or Wi-Fi, knowledge about how to use technology is not a human right. Right? It shouldn't be for someone who has money or access through their work or whatever to have access to technology, and someone else who does not have that privilege to be let out. And that's where governments come in with policy. So we have to encourage government to, yes, have programs for training us and equal access for that as well, but also to see it as a right of every person in our country, no matter the situation. And I think that's something we can advocate for together.
I think that's such a good point, and you know, it's interesting because you're from Northern Ontario, so you know about the digital divide in terms of geography. I mean, there are communities in the north that don't have running water, they sure don't have high-speed internet. But one of the things we learned during COVID is even in a city like Toronto, 32% of racialized children were doing their homework on iPhones. 32% in one of the richest cities in the world, because they couldn't afford it. So it wasn't the technical access to the infrastructure. As Rosalind, as you said, it's a right, and it's becoming increasingly important, not just for running a business, but for attending school. And yet, 32% of kids who were racialized in the city of Toronto could not access what they needed in order to study. So search and replace entrepreneurs, business people, et cetera, et cetera. It's a massive, massive issue. What do you think, Julie? What would you add to the discussion?
I would add that, very selfishly I will share, but so my team, as the National Manager of Women in Enterprise, TD is actually investing in ways to bridge that gap, to increase more opportunity for women entrepreneurs. So my teams across the country, and we actually work with a community of over 200 WE bankers. So WE stands for Women in Enterprise. So what is a WE banker? They're actually accredited, and they are specialized in working with women entrepreneur and women-led organizations with hopefully, limited or very reduced biases. So the idea is to really help women, and it's more than just funding. Like when we speak to clients who have worked with WE bankers, they say that they felt coached, they felt supported, they felt that the WE banker would roll up their sleeves and find different solutions, so that we're really helping women-owned organization, women grow their organization. So I think definitely that's an area. And of course the bank, TD's always been a really strong believer of diversity and inclusion. And another way that they're trying to make sure that we bridge that gap is by investing in different teams that get very, very close to the community of clients that we're looking to service. So we have the Black community, of course, we have the LGBTQ+ community. We try to stay very relevant, and we want to make sure that we're offering tailored services. It's one of the TD's goals is to make sure that everybody, wherever you are, you have the right resources, the right tools to really feel confident in what the future holds for you. So that's one way.
And it's interesting you mention Black entrepreneurs and USLGBTQ+, because of course Al Ramsey is one of the first people in a bank across the country who has been dedicated to serving those communities. And TD was kind of ahead of the curve in that.
I heard that Al also started the Women in Enterprise, like he was one of the first person to start creating that initiative within the bank as well. So I have my job, I have him to thank for my job.
Well, I think that's really an important issue, because often we put ourselves in boxes, or other people put us in boxes and say, women this, Black entrepreneurs that, and so on. But if you take an intersectional lens, you start to see the commonality across the experiences, and building solidarity amongst groups and across groups is absolutely critical.
If I can add, you should see here the group of TDers. It's really, really mixed. We have some wealth folks, we have members from my team, we have members from the Black community. This is what we're trying to do, really remove those silos and work in collaborations, because we can achieve so much more.
Such a good point. Janice, I know Futurepreneur has embraced a sort of intersectional approach as well, big time.
So diversity and inclusion is one of our core values within Futurepreneur. And for those that don't know, we're a national nonprofit. We provide collateral-free loan financing and mentorship to help young entrepreneurs, 18 to 39, start a business, buy a business, grow a business. We are one of the only organizations across the country that does what we do. With every entrepreneur that we support, we match them with a mentor, and our mentorship program is 2 years. We recognize the importance of that 2 years of business start for an entrepreneur. It can be lonely. It can be challenging. Sometimes you just don't know what you don't know, and the mentor is there to provide you with key supports. So I think with the onset of COVID, so much of what Futurepreneur had done was in person. And so for us, embracing technology as an organization meant we could actually democratize the supports that we offer. You know, I'll use our mentorship program as an example. We had one mentor recently say that pre-COVID, he really wanted to be matched with a mentor with whom that he could meet at a coffee shop. What COVID did, and through the use of different platforms, is it opened up the reach. So now a mentor in Montreal could be matched with an entrepreneur in Vancouver. You know, regionality wasn't the skew. And I think thinking about that, and your question about intersectionality, is it also opened the door to the types of programs we offered. When I think about women entrepreneurs, it allowed us the flexibility to meet women where they are and not leave them behind. So thinking about offering a program at night versus during the day, offering programs on weekends versus during the day, because maybe that nighttime or that nighttime service offering wasn't available. And really think about how we can be more intentional with the work that we do, the services we offer. And during COVID, with support from RBC, we launched the Black Entrepreneur Startup Program. So we launched that on March 24th, 2021. We're coming up on our anniversary, and to date we've supported almost 400 young entrepreneurs in starting and launching a business across Canada. Within that, 52% of the entrepreneurs we've supported have launched are women-led businesses. And that's across the board in terms of the work that we do. 44% of the businesses we've helped launch are women-led. And then when we look at Indigenous entrepreneurs, same numbers apply. 52% of the businesses started are women-led within Indigenous communities through support with Futurepreneur.
Well, it's interesting you mention that because when you do disaggregate the data, Indigenous women more likely to be entrepreneurs, Black women more likely to be entrepreneurs, and in the South Asian community, they're almost at gender parity when you look at entrepreneurs. And some of that is push, like some of it is people who are excluded from other opportunities may turn to self-employment, but some of it is pull, some of it is recognizing opportunities to innovate and serve people. And I'm really glad you raised the issue of how platforms can bridge geography, because a lot of the work at incubators, accelerators, and so on before COVID was face-to-face. And I sort of use the analogy of, you know, dating, right? So you go to the bar on Monday night and Wednesday night and Friday night looking for your perfect match, and they're actually there Tuesday and Thursday. And there was a lot of randomness in the connecting. And you're not there yet, in my view, where we have a really solid digital platform to connect people who need things and people who want things. But we're closer to that than we were 3 or 4 years ago. So just, we will give each of you a chance to wrap up, but looking at the time, I'm wondering if there are any questions or comments from the audience. Seem to be lots.
Thank you very much. Mark Borkowski, Mercantile Mergers and Acquisitions. We've been selling private mid-market businesses for 36 years. Collectively, our group have invested in about 11 different women's businesses. Great place to be. Ex-technology entrepreneur, SimTech Automation. 4 of us became 192 people in 4 years. We sold the company to Motorola 37 years ago. I don't have a question. I only have a little bit of advice for all the women entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs. No guts, no glory.
Thank you so much. So for our next panel, our moderator is going to be Marcella Mandeville, a champion for women entrepreneurs, leading the charge, alongside a force of financial wisdom. So we welcome to the stage Donna Wellwyn, Managing Director of the Fairway Group and a visionary leader guiding investments to empower future generations. Anna Dayan, Vice President and Region Head of TD Wealth Private Wealth Management, and a champion for financial empowerment. Aliyah Ramji, partner at McCarthy Therault LLP, and a legal powerhouse breaking down barriers and paving the way for women's success. And Dr. Golnaz Golnargi, founder of Divinity Group and an innovator who accelerates the future for women entrepreneurs. These incredible women are not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk, creating pathways for a future where every woman has the financial power to reach her full potential. So let's give a huge round of applause, an encouraging round of applause for these wonderful women as they come up.
I feel so official at the podium. Thank you so much, and thank you to all the panelists joining us today. This topic obviously is something really important to everyone in this room in some way, shape, or form. We are talking about money, and we have personal relationships with money, and we have professional business relationships with money. So we really are here with this wonderful, esteemed panel to look at those two facets of how we are bringing money into what we want to achieve in our lives, and then how are we also sharing money out into the community and giving back in ways that's going to help us all grow and succeed. So I'm very excited. We had a chance to meet virtually, but it's really great to see everyone in person, and we will get a photo later. I love to take a lot of photos. But I just wanted to start out with a question around access to capital. This is obviously something really important. I know with us at Alberta Women Entrepreneurs, and even through the Women's Enterprise Organizations of Canada, we have our own loan programs. And we're always looking at ways that we can make sure those programs are as inclusive as possible. In Alberta, for example, and is anyone else here from Alberta? Okay, one person is from Alberta. Well, and who here is not from Ontario, actually? Wow, so it's a very local group. That's amazing. So this is unusual for me. Usually, I am the one in a room full of people from Alberta, and I have to say, looking around the room, the diversity is incredible. And I'll admit, we don't get to see this enough in Alberta when we're talking about business and the economy. So when we talk about having a loan program, for example, and I can speak to that because that's our direct experience at Alberta Women Entrepreneurs, is that we have now lent $43 million out into the Alberta economy. And with every dollar that goes out, that repayment is then going back into the hands of women, specifically. Now, we would love to not have to exist. We would love it if there was true equity and there didn't need to be an Alberta or in any other province a woman-focused fund, but that's the reality. And so while we continue to work within the funds that we have, we're also looking out to the community to say, who else has funds that you want to bring in to this community? Out of that $43 million that we've been lending, that's over time, we've been lending for almost 29 years. We started with a loan fund of $5 million. That has gone into the community 7 times. That's $35 million. Less than a 1% default rate on those loans. And yet women are considered a higher risk. The data shows that doesn't make any sense. And so we need to push for that systemic change so that it's not just women-focused programs or women-focused funds that are seeing the value of investing in women. So now I'll get to the panel. I'll stop ranting and raving up here. No, I'm just kidding. But how do we improve access to capital for women entrepreneurs and businesses to ensure they have the financial resources needed to thrive and contribute to the national economy? So I'll start with Aliyah.
Thank you, and thank you to the Casa Foundation for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here, and I have to say that it's a pleasure to be talking about money, because we don't talk about money as women. You don't talk about money with your women friends. You don't talk about money with your families. We don't talk about access to capital enough. And I think it's so important that we actually start talking about money, because men do it all the time. And so we've been getting left behind because we tend not to talk about it. We feel that money is a very private part of our lives. So let's talk about it. Let's address the elephant in the room. And let's level set for a second. Let's talk about why money is so important. According to the McKinsey Institute, from a report from 2017 titled The Power of Parity, advancing women's equality in Canada has the potential to add $150 billion in incremental GDP in 2026. $150 billion. If we are all participating in the innovation economy, we are adding to the GDP. That's a 0.6% increase to annual GDP growth. That's 6% higher than business as usual GDP growth forecast over the next decade. Put another way, this figure is equivalent to adding a new financial services sector to the Canadian economy. That's how important it is that we are participating in the economy and that we're talking about money. And so from this, how do we improve access to capital for women? Well, we've heard about women bootstrapping. We know that women don't talk about money. So the first thing we need to do is talk about money. We need financial education and financial literacy. I know that when I came out of undergrad, out of law school, nobody had talked to me about anything as simple as doing my taxes. And so those are the first things we need to learn as women. And so we need to think about financial literacy for women entrepreneurs. We need programs that educate women on financial management, investment, and understanding credit. I'm going to throw a few more statistics at you. Men have 2% more credit card debt than women. Men have 20% more personal loan debt than women. Men have 16.3% more auto loan debt than women. Men have 9.7% more mortgage debt than women. The only place where women have more debt than men is women have 2.7% more student loan debt than men. So we're more educated, okay? We are, sorry to the men in this room, we are spending our money on education. We are more educated, but we are not leveraging the loans that are available to us. And I think that's because women in general are risk averse. And so we need to look at money and think about how we can use money to our advantage.
Perfect. Oh, I'm just looking at you like you think who's supposed to go next, but actually, Gomez.
Hello everyone, and thank you for having me here, and happy International Women's Year. As far as I'm concerned, it's 365. So the work that I do at Accelerate Her Future, we are a virtual career accelerator for Indigenous, Black, and racialized women pursuing careers in business and STEM. And we also work with corporations, organizations to break down the very barriers that Dr. Suke spoke to earlier today. I'm going to speak on this panel as an entrepreneur who has been navigating an ecosystem as a social entrepreneur, and it's been challenging and rewarding. So I completely agree that we do need to talk about money. I'm a first-generation immigrant, and when we first immigrated here, my mom sought entrepreneurship as a way of survival and as a way of supporting myself and my brother. We didn't have the level of programs that we have available now. I think it's very true that in Canada we're doing much better than other countries in terms of what's available, yet she went into retail and she was able to support us. It was not easy whatsoever. It was very hard. But what she had going for her was exactly the advice that we're hearing: relationships and social capital. She had great bankers, great lawyers and accountants behind her, and she used those professional services to really support her in those times where she really needed them. And so I often think about her as I'm navigating those challenging times. If she could do it, I can do it with all the resources that we have available now, and it's not perfect. I think this is one of the first events where I've heard so eloquently the need to talk about the ecosystem and addressing the barriers that exist within the ecosystem. Far too often we try to fix women as opposed to fixing the systems within which we operate. And so it's refreshing to hear that, and it's also refreshing to hear the intersectional data that's now becoming more available to us, particularly through the Diversity Institute and WEC. So in terms of barriers and things that we need, I think as an entrepreneur, it's really been incumbent for me to be resourceful and do my best to learn about the different opportunities that are out there. I think the comment that was made earlier about there are all these programs where we're not really aware of them. I make sure to tap into incubators, and some are better than others, I have to be honest, where they do have a gender and racial equity lens. They have way more impact. So when I hear about programs for Black entrepreneurs, for Indigenous entrepreneurs, for racialized women, for women through that lens, firsthand, I know it's had a far greater impact, positive impact for me. Also learning about the different opportunities that are out there. I've heard a comment about really be strategic in terms of the relationships that you develop, but also learning about the funding opportunities that are out there. It's so important to be strategic, and I'll share a few more examples later in the panel. But I think, again, as women, the confidence piece and the mindset piece that was talked about is to be relentless and resourceful in this ecosystem. Donna?
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation. This room is phenomenal. Thank you. It's great to see all of you. So I'm going to speak, I don't know, I'm an entrepreneur. And as well, I think I'm going to weave in a little bit about my experience with Black Opportunity Fund, thank you TD, and the work that we're doing in terms of, and what we've learned about access to capital and the barriers to access to capital for women, for racialized groups, and how we can fix that. So I thought this question was interesting because I thought it's interesting that you're asking this room how to improve access to capital. Right? And so, because, who was it that said on a panel before, you know, individuals don't change systems, right? And so it really is a systemic change that needs to happen in order to improve access to capital. We've heard a lot of those sort of come through in terms of, you know, how institutions themselves can. But I think that you made, when we began with, the most important thing. If we're looking at how I can improve my own access to capital, and as an entrepreneur, I'm always looking for money, it is knowledge. It is increasing knowledge. It is learning about money. It is learning how to talk about money. It's learning how people who have money talk about money. And it's learning what to ask for and how you can leverage the money once you got it. And you can't do that, well, I guess you could. It's harder to do that if you're trying to do it on your own. It's harder to do that if you're trying to access this through, I don't know, through the World Wide Web. And so that whole, you know, that whole refrain that we've heard this morning about your net worth is your network, or your network is your net worth, whichever way it goes, that is so true. And it's also true that these circles, I came in late, so I didn't hear, Juliet, your comment, I just heard a reference to it later about the susu, right? And just yesterday, literally I am in LA talking to some people about money, and susu comes up, right? And you think, well, how does that, and so for those of you who don't know, this is a way of I don't know how you describe it, but a communal way of pooling capital so that it moves within the community. I have a minute left. So look, again, I think that we have to talk about it. I think that that the important thing about creating circles to talk about these things, creating networks, is in addition to being able to transfer knowledge, being able to learn about opportunities, is that what you create in people is trust. Because once they know you, they trust you. And that trust becomes critically important when you need to call on someone to open their network to you. Because I'm an immigrant, you know, wasn't born here. We didn't have the social networks or the capital to begin anything. And it is really relying on other people to open up their networks to me to be able to access capital, to be able to learn about how to ask for money and how to use money once you get it.
Yeah, fantastic, thank you. And last but not least, Anna.
Good morning, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm Vice President and head of our GTA region at TD Wealth Management, Private Wealth Management. And I would agree with all the panelists. Maybe I'll just kind of reiterate a couple of things. And hopefully today I'm going to talk a little bit more on the personal financial side. Obviously, access to capital is absolutely critical for entrepreneurs. But equally important is making sure that you're taking care of your own personal financial situation. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on. But as it relates to this particular question, it's incredible just to see some of the stats in terms of how women entrepreneurs are underrepresented as it relates to venture capital and funding of their businesses. And some of the stats are just astounding if you take a look at the percentage that's allocated to women-run businesses versus those run by men. I would agree with all of the points here. I just want to add a couple of additional items. At the organizational level, and this is at a macro level, it's absolutely critical that we're intentional as it relates to the organizations that we're funding. And so Julie was up here talking about how we have 200 women-specific bankers on our business banking side that's dedicated to understanding the unique needs of women-run businesses. And that's the intention and the investment at an organizational level, saying, excuse me, we need to do something different as it relates to women-run businesses. We'll reiterate about financial education. It's absolutely critical that we're taking the time, and I know I'm a professional, very busy, not a lot of personal time. I've got kids, I've got hockey to take practice and all that stuff, but it's absolutely critical to take the time to educate yourself, to become financially literate, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, to take care of your own personal financial situation.
Honorable Rachel Valdez, Minister of Small Business, Canada, Government of Canada, to present a goodwill message. I think we can roll the thank you.
Hi everyone, on behalf of the Government of Canada, welcome to the Casa Foundation's Women Inspire 2024 event. I would like to acknowledge that I am speaking to you today from the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. Thank you so much for inviting me back this year to say a few words, and thank you to Dr. Olotoyin and the rest of the team at Casa Foundation for all of the work you are doing to support Black entrepreneurs across Canada. As Canada's Minister of Small Business, one of the most incredible aspects of my job is meeting inspiring women from across the country who have followed their passions to become entrepreneurs. Women who are like all of you who are gathered here today. As we approach International Women's Day, it's the perfect time to let the other women around you inspire you. Being a former entrepreneur myself, I know how hard it is to build a business from the ground up. And for Black women, those barriers are even higher. But if we empower women entrepreneurs and help them succeed, all Canadians will benefit. By fully including women, we could add up to $150 billion to our economy. Soutenir les femmes n'est pas seulement le bon choix, c'est le choix intelligent. That's why I'm so proud that our government is working to level the small business playing field for everyone, regardless of your gender or race. A prime example of this is our Women Entrepreneurship Strategy, the first ever strategy of its kind in Canada. Launched 5 years ago, the West is now a nearly $7 billion investment that is helping women entrepreneurs access the financing, networks, mentorship, and training they need to succeed. Through WEST, we've helped more than 10,000 women start new businesses and more than 12,000 women to grow existing ones. Our government has also developed programs to provide support to women entrepreneurs from all backgrounds. The Black Entrepreneurship Program aims to empower Black-led businesses through a three-pronged approach that includes access to financing, mentoring, and data collection. each one led by Black-led partner organizations. Nearly $50 million in loans have already been approved through the Loan Fund to help address systemic barriers faced by Black entrepreneurs across the country, including Black women entrepreneurs. Collectively, these programs provide key resources to help Black women entrepreneurs succeed and grow their businesses. But it takes more than government support to truly move the needle. It is our Black-led partner organizations who deserve the real celebration for the incredible work they are doing. Our government is proud to have provided $4.74 million to Casa Foundation, who is playing a pivotal role in bringing women together to support and inspire each other. Because when women entrepreneurs uplift one another, they are unstoppable. I hope that everyone today has an exciting and inspirational event. I wish I could be there to join all of you. Have a wonderful International Women's Day. Thank you.
All right, it's not going to be a speech. I do know that we're aiming to catch lunch. All right, have we had a good time today? All right, so just to wrap up quickly, I quickly wanted to say thank you to everyone for coming. And I'm sure that I speak the minds of a lot of us in the room today when I say it's been an insightful, very enlightening session. I do know we had quite a number of questions that we couldn't even take. So I'm sure we'll be having a networking lunch session. So that's the way we're going to wrap this up. I was actually going to provide this closing remarks after lunch, but then I said to them, let's do this and then settle down and have lunch and talk about some of those other questions that you perhaps didn't get some answers to. So you sit around the tables. Now you can aim at meeting Marcella. Well, of course, I'm going to warn you, a few people are also traveling, but then just take note of the questions you need answers to. Find a way to sit around the people. We have a lot of resources in the room. Value on each table. Connect with each person. Wendy said that, if we said that, your network is your network. Sit with people. Because the more people you get connected to, the bigger your ecosystem. The bigger your ecosystem, the more resources come to you. And so I'm not going to read that speech, but I wanted to say thank you. First, to the Minister of Women, of Economic and Social Opportunity, Charmaine, who opened the session for us in the morning today, and that was really great, and I'm sure that a lot of her words of wisdom will resonate with a lot of us in the room today. So she shared her her card, and so I'm sure we can also reach her, particularly because of some of the new programs she reeled out to us that we're starting at the Government of Ontario. It's important that we connect with that office, and they made that available, and we also want to get inspired by those. Also, I wanted to specifically say thank you to all our speakers today, and I'm going to mention their names, and you just have to pardon me. So we have Professor Jimeno, who is still there from Sentinel College, Global School of Management. We have Juliet, the board member from Paro, and then of course the founder of Bold Women Network. Thank you again for coming. Ashley Caravan, thank you again for coming. And I wanted to really say these are proud graduates of the Black Advisory Hall, proud graduates of the entrepreneurship program at Casa Foundation, and of course, winners of the Peach Masters Grants funded by TD Bank. All of them showcased today. And so it tells you a story about when people have ideas, you bring your ideas to the table, there's a higher likelihood that if you connect with the right ecosystem or support, you will get your funding, okay? So that's there. Rosalind Lockyer, thank you, she's not here. I think she's headed back to Thunder Bay now. And then Janice Nixon from Futurepreneur, thank you again for coming. Donna Walwyn, this is your second or third time coming, and we really appreciate you finally meeting you in person. Thank you for coming also. Marcella Deville, all the way from Alberta, the CEO of Alberta Women Entrepreneur. Thank you again for coming. And Aliyah Ramji, thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. Julie Dimitri of TD Bank, Anna Diane of TD Bank, our sponsors, and we really appreciate your speaking on the panel as speakers today. Cassandra was here a moment ago, but I think she had to step out, all right? So thank you. She didn't speak, but she's one of our very impactful ecosystem partners, talking about how to purchase, connect with government, partner with government, and purchase from government. That's really important. Golnarbi, thank you again for coming. I'm not sure, yeah, she's still in the room. Thank you again for coming. Thank you so much for everyone that turned out to join us. So the board of Casa Foundation, we also want to say a huge thank you to you, all our friends. We do have our CEOs here, actually, from the CEO program at Casa Foundation. I say thank you all. I see you all seated around the room, so thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Now,